By the year 1600, Amsterdam was home to 60,000 souls. By the end of the century, that number had swelled to over 200,000. Its harbor churned with life. 5,000 merchant ships, nearly half of Europe's entire fleet, crowded its waters. Goods from 6 continents flowed through the city. Spices from Java, sugar from Brazil, timber from the Baltic, porcelain from China, furs from Russia. Amsterdam had become a hinge upon which the world turned. The city's story began, as all its fortunes would, with water. In the 13th century, a modest fishing village built a dam where the Amstel River met the sea. From that simple act came a name, Amsterdam. For centuries, it remained small, unassuming, provincial, easily overlooked. Then came 1585. Spanish troops captured Antwerp, the great commercial heart of the Low Countries. Trade collapsed overnight, and people fled. Northward, they streamed in their thousands. Merchants and craftsmen, Portuguese Jews escaping the Inquisition, French Huguenots fleeing persecution. They arrived with capital, skills, global connections, and a fierce will to survive. Amsterdam reshaped itself to receive them. The city expanded outward in a feat of planned ambition. 4 vast concentric rings of canals, dug by hand over 30 years of relentless labor. Along these waterways rose narrow townhouses, 4 and 5 stories tall, their stepped gables adorned with ornate facades that masked strict frugality within. At the city's core stood Dam Square, where the river had been dammed 4 centuries earlier. Here rose the new town hall, completed in 1655, a classical palace of marble and scale that announced Amsterdam's claim not as a regional power, but as a global one. Inside, galleries glorified trade, justice, and civic virtue. In the Grand Citizens' Hall, the hemispheres of the known world were inlaid in bronze upon the floor. Nearby stood the Beurs, Hendrik de Keyser's great exchange, a humming engine of global commerce. Beneath its arcades, merchants traded shares of the Dutch East India Company, whispered news from distant seas, and shaped the world's first modern financial markets. Here, capitalism itself was being invented. Not only goods were bought and sold, but futures, derivatives, and speculative promises, bubbles that rose and burst with devastating regularity. At its height, the VOC employed over 1 million people worldwide and operated nearly 5,000 ships. Pepper from Malabar, cinnamon from Ceylon, nutmeg from the Banda Islands, textiles from the Coromandel coast. On the docks, under gray northern skies, workers unloaded barrels. Sailors and day laborers strained beneath the weight of empire. The city's wealth rested on their backs, and few would ever remember their names. 1 in 5 sailors who departed for the East Indies never returned. Disease, storms, violence in distant ports. Their bodies lie in unmarked graves scattered across 3 oceans. The same ships that brought spices also carried slaves. The same merchants who funded Rembrandt also financed wars of conquest in Asia. The freedom enjoyed in Amsterdam was often purchased with unfreedom elsewhere. Still, they came. Young men from Friesland and Gelderland seeking fortune. Refugees from war-torn German states. Jewish families fleeing persecution. Passing beneath gates marked with the Republic's flag, they entered a city unlike any other in Europe. Amsterdam was loud, chaotic, polyglot. 20 languages could be heard on a single street. Fortunes were made and lost within a single season. This was the Vismarkt, Amsterdam's great fish market in the 17th century, one of the busiest in Europe. At dawn, Barges arrived heavy with herring and cod from the North Sea. Buyers crowded the quay, inspecting the catch. Barrels, nets, and wicker baskets filled the waterfront. Here, commerce began long before the sun touched the rooftops. Across the Dutch Republic, scenes like this unfolded daily. Wooden footbridges linked quiet neighborhoods. Washerwomen worked from floating shelters along the canals. Tall merchant houses stood watch over the rhythms of labor, their facades recording centuries of trade, craft, and ordinary life. Beyond the western ramparts, life continued along the Haarlem Gate. Drawbridges crossed the defensive moat. Windmills turned steadily in open fields beyond. Here, where countryside met the rising force of a global city, Amsterdam expanded quietly toward its golden age. From the south, travelers crossed the Lidpoort, completed in 1664. Its ornate facade marking the threshold between rural Netherlands and one of Europe's most dynamic urban worlds. Long before it stood at the city's heart, the Waag was the St. Anthony's Gate, a fortified southern entrance built in the late 15th century. In the Golden Age, it became a bustling wayhouse, home to powerful guilds and constant negotiation. Medieval defenses gave way to mercantile ambition. By the late 17th century, what had once been a gate now anchored a thriving market square, a medieval stronghold transformed into the beating heart of commerce. This was life in the 17th century Amsterdam, canals choked with boats, markets alive with sound, and old walls reborn as engines of a global age.